In the 1960s, while the civil rights movement transitioned into black nationalism, well-meaning Africans sought for ways to reconnect African Americans with their heritage. Among them was a professor of Black Studies at California State University, Long Beach. This professor, Dr. Maulana Karenga, created KWANZAA in order to bring African Americans together as a community and help them reconnect with their African roots and heritage. KWANZAA celebrates family, community, culture, and heritage. At the Young African Leaders Forum, YOLF, we believe that KWANZAA is symbolic of Pan-Africanism. To wrap up 2023, YOLF invites you to our end-of-year get-together, which will host African Americans and Africans from different parts of the world. Our discussion would focus on the 7 principles of KWANZAA. These principles represent the values of family, community, and culture for Africans and people of the African descent to live by. The principles are umoja, unity, kujichagulia, self-determination, ujima, collective work and responsibility, ujamaa, cooperative economics, nia, purpose, gumba, creativity, and imani, faith. Join us for this joyous celebration of Pan-African culture and community. Confirmed discussants include Dr. Lashanta Williams, Dr. Salah Muhammad, Charles Ezra Farrell, and Ndugu Msimi Mulumba. The master of ceremony is the young radical comrade Togon Tigo. Date is Thursday, December 21st, 2023. Time is 1400 GMT, 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Register today on bit.ly/KWANZAA 2023. For more information, contact us via info@yolf.africa.
We welcome and honor the divine. We welcome and honor the ancestors. We welcome and honor the spirit of Ubuntu as we all gather here to celebrate the African ceremony. So following up, it's a drum provided by the urban shamans. So right after there, it's when we are going to catch up and see what we have as of today. Thank you.
to the diaspora, we send you wishes on this joyous moment. We celebrate the moment of Kwanzaa and celebrating our culture as African people abroad, and we unite with our brothers and sisters from the continent. All right, so we're going to come up with the next rhythm. The rhythm. Yeah. Who am I? I am blackness when eyes are closed. I am fear of no one. I am one, the black soul. I exist. I subsist. I am the physical matter. I am the energy restored. Because my presence would never. My presence is strong for those oppressors who suppress my true knowledge, but cannot strip the line that ties me through a legitimate inherited sensory. I'm talking about melanin. I'm talking about melanin. I'm talking about black matter, black matter, black matter, cosmic black matter. Black lives always matter. Indeed, this is true. Black is powerful, black is bold, black is beautiful. We're talking about melanin, extracted from elements. True intelligence can comprehend and embrace the development. What was understood as a holy black body, what was understood as a holy black body became bodies sold for servitude, maliciously mutilated, murdered, and raped, departed from a ritual practice faith. Now disconnected from an ancestral hold, misguided, miseducated, lost on a path, never to find a black soul, though who could adore what this black soul was built to absorb. Ultraviolet rays in its deadly phase were never destroyed. This atomic mass, we were created to withstand a nuclear blast. It is the substance behind all living existence. It is the substance behind all living existence. We're talking about black matter, black matter, black matter, black matter, cosmic black matter, ancestral black matter. Black lives always matter. Indeed, this is true. Black is powerful, black is bold, black is beautiful. Ultraviolet rays in its deadly phase will never destroy this atomic mass. We were created to withstand a nuclear blast. It is the substance behind all living existence. Facts of this truth becomes apparent with the view of your melanin optic vision. Eyelids closed shut but never to stop its enlightened spirit. Some need to smoke just to hear it. Take a puff, breathe deep, phase within a semi-induced trance sleep. Results of this chemical and element infusion. Your thoughts are slowed down to analyze the illusion. Your thoughts are slowed down to analyze the illusion. What are we talking about? We're talking about melanin, black matter, black matter, black matter, cosmic black matter, ancestral black matter. Black lives always matter. Indeed, this is true. Black is powerful, black is bold, black is beautiful. Yeah. All right, we're going to end this off in one of our signature pieces. We call it soul music. This is a song that, we came up with in reference to our ancestors, our legendary ancestors, those who made music that, that the world danced to. So this is called soul music. This is down. So tight. Yes, sir. We do this for our children. Tell Negro, sir. We do it for peace. Peace, 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 peace. That's what our city really needs. We do it for justice. Justice. A true living creed. We do it for the love. Love, 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 love. Most high above. We got that soul music. 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 Can you feel it? Yeah. 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 Can you feel something? Let's go. Let's go. Thank you. Thank you.
Satisana.
Santi Sana.
Ashe.
Wow, wow, wow. That is very, very beautiful and of course very, very African. I've
Yeah.
loved the touch of it. More importantly, the sound of the drum. Can you do that again? The drum. Do the drum again. Give it an African beat. More of it. Aha, aha, aha. There we go. There we go. There we go. That's how Africa is supposed to sound. You know, the vibrancy. That's what we are talking about. The energy. That's what we are talking about. So thank you very, very much, the urban shamans. That is a beautiful intro there. I believe wheresoever they are, those our patriarchs are smiling. They are, surely they are. They are smiling. They've left us a culture we are here to celebrate. So once again, habari gani, habari gani to all of us. I believe I've done my Kiswahili so good, right? if if it were in Chichewa, I would have said mwaswera bwanji. Given the hour, the sun is setting. So I'm happy once again to be here. More importantly, to celebrate the African culture, arts, and heritage. It is something that for ages I've gone across. That has been commemorated across the Africans and of course those in the diaspora. More importantly, now here with us today is an opportunity to showcase what we have as Africans. That is, there's none other joyful thing than that. So with me here, I would love to introduce my discussants. We are going to have an amazing topics cut across aspects of arts, aspects of culture, and more so aspects of African heritage. So I will let each and every one of them to get to speak. I will give them a pointer and they will say what they can say about them. But one more importantly, I would love to hear from them is what makes them more proud about Africa. What is it that they celebrate in the fact that they are Africans? So you give us your name, whatsoever you feel like you can give, but at the end, see to it that you give us that answer to say, what is it that makes you proud as an African? Let's start with Sister Nduku.
Asante sana. Those drums were yes. I'm feeling very aligned to everyone and feeling the energy of the ancestors. Again, Sister Nduku
Wow.
Mpuka, born and raised in the land that the British decided to call Kenya, connecting with my brothers and sisters in our motherland, beyond those borders that were created by those who invaded our motherland, and reaching to each other in our African ways, right? I am the co-host on Kumbukeni, a member of community of the Jumuiya ya Nguzo Saba, which is a young community that is growing, and also a guest host on the emerging Kelbulan, which if you follow me, you'll find out more about. But yes, And I am connecting with my brothers and sisters again, beyond borders, celebrating us and who we are. What is the thing I like best about being African? First of all, my melanin. I don't get to burn in the sun.
Wow,
I don't get
wow.
to burn in the sun, my melanin. So I'm very grateful about that. You don't get to see my blemishes so easily because of my melanin. How beautiful is
Look
that?
at,
So I love my melanin.
wow.
And I love my sense of pride, that Africanness, and that energy of just connecting with fellow human beings and not being embarrassed to speak truth. That is very African. I love that about me. So yes.
Wow. Thank you for that. I would want to ask a very, very quick question.
Mm.
What is it that you prefer, being caught black or marinated? And
Melanated.
why?
Melanated.
Why?
So
Why?
black was associated with, and that's a great question, Brother Toko,
Uh-huh.
because we need to start changing the language that we use. Black has been
All right.
associated with everything negative, right? You see the devil is black. You see charcoal, like cha is black. Like everything you can think of that is bad is black. And they named us that intentionally because they wanted to
All
be white
right.
and pure and close to purity. So they gave us black. So how do we liberate ourselves from that? We take melanin, which is the true scientific thing that gives color to the skin, right? But it's
Uh-huh.
not just the color, it's a chemical that protects us from all kinds of harm, right? We are not burning from the sun, right? Our melanin keeps us, you don't see our blemish, like I was mentioning before, you don't see our blemishes. So we are
Mm-hmm.
melanated Africans. That's what we are. All over, global melanated Africans. And I'm just going to quickly turn off my audio because I have my garbage truck coming, and you can continue, Brother Toko.
All right. Thank you very much. She's just made a point that there we are marinated and not necessarily black. So we are changing the language. We should revise the curriculum and give ourselves a good tone at least. All right. Let's hear from Dr. Rashanta Williams. How best will you put yourself across, and what is it that makes you proud as an African?
Hello, everyone. I'm so blessed to be here, be a part of this space. I am an educator, forever learner. Um,
Wow.
I became part of Dada Nduku's circle by way of wanting to learn how to speak Swahili. And
Oh,
so
wow.
she has offered a platform to be able to allow that opportunity for those of us who would like to hear. And I mean, anywhere, but I'm here in the United States. So wanted to be able to connect with my brothers and sisters that speak the language of Swahili on the African continent, but also here in my hometown, where we have a lot of refugees and immigrants who have become part of our community. So, and one way for me to be able to have a deeper connection is to learn the language, right? And learn the language, learn the culture, learn the ways of being. And so this has been such a learning experience for me. I'm a baby in learning right now in so many ways, even though I've gone far in my education, but I'm a baby in learning right now. And I appreciate this space. And what I really love about being a melanated individual is that I love the instant connections you have. You may not even know this person, but there's some instant connection that you have with this individual that makes you want to reach out, speak to the individual. And I if I can, with the little time here, just share that even when I was on my college campus, when I first started my college career, there are so many individuals on the campus that looked like me that I didn't know from different places. But whenever we're walking across the campus, we spoke, we said hello, we greeted one another, and those who aren't of the melanated persuasion would say, "Oh, do you know that person?" No, I don't, but there's something about us where we have to connect. We have to say something and acknowledge one another. So I love that. I love that about us. When we walk into a space and we seek out one another, that just
Wow.
warms my heart. So thank you.
Wow, that's good. I got to listen to a story just yesterday. A colleague here in Malawi went up north, that's in Europe, to do his education, and he got there and he met an African from Morocco. And
Mm.
on the east end, they had to greet each other. I said, "Hi, hi, I'm from Morocco." He says, "No, you're not African. You're not African." But he was like, "Oh no, I'm African. I'm from Morocco." So that aspect where Africans meet in the diaspora, but the moment you get to see each other, instantly you connect. I thought it's a lie, but he got to testify of me all the same. So
Yes.
I've got an instant insight from there. All right, let's get to hear from a Prince Ifo. What do you say about yourself and more so about being an African?
Yeah, thank you so much, Brother Toko. I'm happy to be here. Um, I'm president of the Young African Leaders Forum and a vibrant African youth that is trying as much as possible to portray my country and my continent in a very great light. Some of the things that or one of the unique things that I really love about Africa is our rich culture and the diversification of languages. I mean, you find numerous languages in Africa, numerous beautiful languages, beautiful culture, beautiful heritage, the vast mountains. I mean, you can't find that anywhere else. It's just unique to Africa. There are some unique things that you get. Nature, you enjoy it to the fullest. Everything about Africa is just quite original. Down to the people, like you said, connecting elsewhere where you find yourselves in the diaspora. I travel a lot, so I can tell that when you get out and you see an African, it's just, I mean, the connection is just so natural that you just, oh, my brother, oh, my sister. And then you just begin to react as though you've seen yourself for 1,000 years. And that's the beauty of everything. That's the beauty of Africa. And I really love the fact that Africans quite original and humble to some extent to accept and embrace themselves irrespective of where they find themselves. And for me, that's a cutting point, and that is a very unique thing that makes me good and makes me feel good as an African. And I remain African. You see, I'm dressed like an African today, and I'm dressed well dressed like an African. You know, my Ghana kente and everything. Yeah. So I mean, I love that. I love being African. Thank you so much.
Oh wow, beautiful. Actually, the outfit there, yeah, really true African. The origin is being seen, very visible. All right, thank you for putting that across. Let's hear from Juliet. How do you put yourself across, and what is it that makes you proud as an African?
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm glad to be here and to connect with my fellow Africans. Yeah. So my name is
Thank you.
Juliet Ihechuku Ibene. I'm from the eastern part of Nigeria, West Africa. Uh, a food entrepreneur. Yeah, I love food.
Wow.
I love the food industry. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's one of the things, that make me love Africa. It's one of the things that makes me proud that I'm African. Food. We have diverse kind of foods, Yeah. And also yeah, and also our dance, like cultural heritage, like dance. Like in Nigeria, there's this tribe called Akwa Ibom. I love their culture so well. So the dance and then the food is something that makes me proud to be African. Thank you so much.
Wow, the food and the dance is what makes her proud as African. That's so good. That's so good. I really love that about you. So we are gonna have other discussers joining us. Oh, there is one. Let's just give him a minute. Hey, brother Aliu. Hello. Sorry, you're not audible. You are not audible. Oh, I think he's having a challenge. All right, he'll join us in the course. All right, thank you once again for that introduction. So we are here in the spirit of Kwanzaa, celebrating Kwanzaa. Actually, it's one of those celebration I was talking last time. I said the very first time I got to hear about Kwanzaa was on comedy. The Everybody Hates Chris comedy. So this family wasn't able to celebrate Christmas, so they said instead of Christmas, let's celebrate Kwanzaa. So there is a thought out there to say maybe Kwanzaa is a substitute for Christmas, among other things. Maybe Kwanzaa it's a celebration made for those of African descent who are in the diaspora only, not necessarily for the Africans in Africa. There is a lot of language, maybe we might call them misconception about the whole celebration called Kwanzaa. So let's dig a bit into the background of this whole issue. What is Kwanzaa? How did it how did it originate? Who were the ones who brought it about? So we'll take it first from Sister Nduku, and Dr. Ashanta will add a commentary on the same. Sister Nduku. Your sound, please.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. Can you all see that? Can everyone see that? Everyone in the chat, can you see that? Please let us know if you can see that.
Of course.
For the community in the chat, a good thumbs up or a yes, you can see that would be fine. And just quickly, let's check Brother Aliu's audio and see whether we can quickly introduce him. Let me stop sharing that. Brother Aliu, just go off mute and let's hear you. You need to unmute.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we do. Please introduce yourself.
That's great. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are geographically resident. My name is Aliu Suleiman, and I'm from Nigeria, also a health ambassador from Nigeria here. I am an unapologetic Pan-Africanist, and nice meeting you all. Thank you.
What is it that makes you proud about being African? I would love to hear you on that.
Oh, what makes me proud to be an African is that, you know, even when you try to leave Africa, she is always present in you. As Kwame Nkrumah said, that one is not an African because Africa was born in him, but one is an Africa because Africa is always present in him. So I am proud to be an African because we are a home of humility and also a home of tolerance. We welcome every civilization in the world. We welcome the Portuguese, they abuse us. We welcome the Chinese, they abuse us. We welcome the Indians, they abuse us. But I'm glad that we are now begin to recognize and also to connect with the Africans in the diaspora so that we can strengthen our spirit of Pan-Africanism. Thank you.
Thank you very much for for putting yourself in such a way. You can carry on, Sister Nduku.
All right. Okay. Okay. All right. So everyone can see it. Yes. 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 They said we can see it. So this is the official Kwanzaa website, and I forgot to put that there. I'm just quickly going to put it in the chat. For those of you who want to do more research and learn about Kwanzaa, that is the official Kwanzaa website. And all this information, I'll just be taking it from there because there's no need to reinvent the wheel when it has been prepared for us. The way has been cleared for us. So Kwanzaa is an African, Kwanzaa was, I don't want to say invented, was put together, was built by Dr. Maulana Karenga in the United States. It's an African-American. It was started as an African-American and Pan-African holiday. And that Pan-African means beyond America, right? That Pan-Africa includes the continent. That Pan-Africa includes the Caribbean. That Pan-Africa includes Africans wherever they may be on the globe. And therefore, Kwanzaa is a holiday for all Africans, all global Africans, which celebrates family, community, and culture. It was created in 1966. So this is around the time African nations have just gotten their independence as well, right? Kenya got their independence in 63. A lot of African nations are not even 10 years old, by Dr. Maulana Karenga, a professor of African studies Kwanzaa is a 7-day cultural festival that begins December 26th and ends January 1st. It joins communitarian values and practices of continental African and African American culture. During the holiday, families and communities organize activities around the Nguzo Saba, the seven principles: Umoja, which is unity; Kujichagulia, which is self-determination; Ujima, which is collective work and responsibility; Ujamaa, cooperative economics; Nia, which is purpose; Kuumba, creativity; and Imani, faith. The participants also celebrate with feasts, which is karamu in Kiswahili, music, dance, poetry, narratives, and end the holiday with a day dedicated to reflection and recommitment to the seven principles and other central cultural values. So you can imagine the descendants of enslaved Africans in the United States. They have been brought to a land that is foreign to them. They are with people who are foreign to them. They are feeling detached from everything, including their motherland, right? But the one connection is each other. And Maulana Karenga travels to Africa and he sees the culture and he sees the things that connect the people in Africa. He sees these principles that he centers Kwanzaa on in practice in Africa, which is probably why, and those of you who Dr. Maulana Karenga is present with us to this day sharing about Kwanzaa. So when you visit the website, you can see other places where they commune. They will actually be having a virtual celebration, in-person and virtual celebration of Kwanzaa beginning on the 26th for those of you who want to attend. But he sees this and he says, listen, this is me taking back home to our brothers and sisters who were taken off the land, the culture, bringing the motherland back to them, right? Connecting them with their ancestry, connecting these principles that strengthen the African community to them so that we can start strengthening our community back in the United States, so that we can find connection to the continent, to our motherland. And for those of you who follow me, yesterday we had a conversation with Dr. Eli Anderson in the UK, and he was talking about this. He was talking about how our ancestry is within us, right? The quantum force that's within us. So we just need to reconnect and it will be awakened. So for those Africans who are taken away from the continent, that spark of Maulana Karenga bringing back those African principles to them, that sparked their Africanness. And the more you practice it, the more in connection with the African culture you are, including speaking the language Kiswahili, which he made very sure centered the culture, the celebration of Kwanzaa.
All right. Thank you for such an outline. Dr. Ashanta, what do you comment on the same in as far as the background of Kwanzaa is concerned?
I really don't have much more to say than, I mean, the history is what it is, right? But hopefully that people will see today coming here in this event that you see sprinkled throughout this entire event, the way that it has been laid out, that it covers all of those pieces. It covers the dancing, the storytelling, the poetry, the spoken word, like the reading of us as a people, the African drumming, the feasting. So all of those pieces are going to be infused in what you see today, and bringing the connection, like Dada Nduku said, bringing the connection of our people together from the continent to the diaspora.
Wow. Oh, wow, that's so good. Prince Ifo, you are the head of the African Youth Organization, where you assemble with the young, you initiate programs among the young one, the emerging generation. What do you say about the background of Kwanzaa in relation to the emerging generation? What should the emerging generation know about Kwanzaa that you'd love to put across?
So I think I would like to start from the fact that many young people you see out today already unconsciously somehow exude some of these vital principles of Kwanzaa. They just don't know, but it's part of your natural build-up as an African. You don't know, but almost every young African would. We just spoke about the fact that when we connect outside, it's very easy for us to connect. And that's one of the principles of KWANZAA. The cooperation is there. So you find the faith, you find the hard work, you find the coming together to do something. And those are the very principles that young people already have that they might not know is or are part of the principles of KWANZAA. And so when I even got to discover about these principles, I realized that, oh, you already were living most of them, but you didn't know that there were principles like this. And then that made you more African. Like, you know that obviously you're an African. So many young people are trying to fit up with the global standards and trying to blend into what they call the 21st century skills and 21st century world and everything, and then moving gradually away from what makes us really African. And that for me is not something that is nice. Reading different things that I find online, and then there's this basic points that are globally, let me not mention names, but there are basic points that are globally obtainable outside and really choking up the African culture, the African heritage, and who we are as Africans. But many young people would not want to outrightly go against their culture. But because of the peer pressure, because of what is happening outside, they eventually have to either join them, or I mean, you can't beat them, but you either just join them or you stay quiet. So they rather prefer to join them rather than staying quiet. So, and that's what I see. So what I'm looking at is the fact that as young Africans, we need to come together to ensure that these values, these basic African values, are the things that we can delightedly stand by, we can unitedly agree on, that we live by these principles, we do things according to what these African principles have said we should do. And so we can get that kind of round connections amongst ourselves like that. Imagine working with you, Toko, and you know that I'm a person of deep African values. I'm a person of Imani, a person of faith. I'm a person of Mia and Nia and the rest of them. So you can find that these principles are part of what I already exude. So you know how to deal with me. And then when it comes to time for you to try to maybe play some kind of prank and everything, you know that as an African who exudes these principles, you should deal with me in a very honest manner, and I should deal with you also in a very honest manner. So if you find that connection amongst me and other young people you work with, I can tell that it will also change your life and put you in the right track and make you live like a real African. And then you know you don't have to pretend, you don't have to try to do some other things just to fit into societal standards. You have to just be yourself and then become who you should be as an African. So I don't think we should be apologetic about being Africans. We are Africans, and our values are very ideal values, and our values continue to spread and keep us strong. We shouldn't deviate or try to allow anything quench our basic African values. I can say that with lots of pride, because if you look at the Asians, they are trying as much as possible to keep their values to themselves and ensure that no matter the Western civilization that is happening, their values are not affected. As Africans, I think it's important that we understand that no matter the civilization that comes up, no matter what happens, our values as Africans must remain. In Africa, we have that value. I mean, respect is a very common thing in every African society. So you see the respect for the elders, the respect for the older ones and everything. And these things should be balanced. So you see, in Africa, it's a culture, so we know what to do, and growing up in the society, you should know what to do as well. So that's for me a few of the things that I'd just like to add.
Wow. Thank you very much. Hearing you earlier on, you made a point that Africa is one of those countries, matlingo in a way. We have a lot of languages. And hearing Nduku making her presentation, she said that one of the things Dr. Maurana had to put across is that instilled in the KWANZAA is that language of Kiswahili. I would love to move on to the principles, but I just want to understand why Kiswahili and not Shona? Why Kiswahili and not Chichewa? Why Kiswahili and not whatever language put across the continent? Why Kiswahili?
So this would be a question best asked to Maulana Karenga, right? And we would love to hear him tell us why he chose Kiswahili. But being someone who analyzes my surroundings and the events that take place, Kiswahili, and he traveled to Africa. So if you're traveling to Africa and you're looking at the peoples of Africa, and you identify a language that, first of all, was created because peoples of East Africa, Afrika Mashariki, came together and they had different languages they were speaking, but there were very many similarities in the languages that they were speaking. But they still needed a language where they could trade together, they could intermarry, they could socialize and have peace together. And therefore, out of their African languages, and I say out of their African languages and not out of Arabic, like most of you believe, because when I speak Kikamba, which is an African language in East Africa, when my friend from Uganda speaks Luganda, which is an African language from East Africa, when my friend from Congo speaks Lingala, which is an African language from Central Africa, when my friend from South Africa speaks Nkosa, which is an African language again from South Africa, when my friend from Zimbabwe speaks Shona, when my friends from that whole area speak, I can hear certain words in their languages that are similar to Kikamba. When you speak Kiswahili, you can hear certain words that are similar to all those languages. And so you have an invading language, Arabic, right? Because they invade that part of Africa. And of course, it's going to influence. Why is it going to influence the languages of that area? And of course, they're going to influence the language that they have recognized unites these people, because they're trying to detach these people from each other. They're trying not to have these people unite because they know the power in their unity. And therefore, they're going to infect that language that unites them with this language of theirs. And because they are now in leadership and they are controlling the way things are done, including language, they will influence the culture so that they can rule the area. And therefore, they influenced Kiswahili and infected it with Arabic. And for those Arabs who are too fragile to take facts and want to get in their feelings, just get over it, build a bridge, and no, cry a river. Baba Kaba Kameni, I was about to missay your saying. Cry a river, build a bridge, and get over it. Because this is our culture and we are embracing it. So yes, Kiswahili because it was a uniting language, Kiswahili because it was recognized in a lot of African languages. And therefore, if it's doing that there, why not bring it here to unite us as Africans?
Wow. So the understanding is Kiswahili is that connecting language. So in order to split Africa, they had to attack that, infuse their own language into that. I think we have a good point there. All right, now that we are adopting Kiswahili and the whole Kwanzaa celebration revolves around that language. Now, all of us are making a point. There are principles into the Kwanzaa we must see in every African, and of course those of African descent. Can we, for a minute or so, in our next segment, begin to dive deep into that? Can we build an understanding? What are these principles?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so let me go back again to the source, because we do not need to reinvent the wheel. And let me know when you all see what I am showing. Or I can stop sharing and then start sharing again. Just bear with me. You can all see that?
Of course.
Okay, great. All right, so we'll start with Umoja, which is the first day on the 26th of December, Umoja. And you can see there, they are gathered together in Umoja. And Moja, the word Moja in Kiswahili is one. And therefore, the practice of being in one is Umoja, right? That's the noun. And so in English, that is unity. But Karenga wanted this to strive for and maintain unity in the family, because he believed it starts with the family unit. And then in the community, in the nation, and in the race, in that order. If our families are dysfunctional, our community will not be functional. If our community is dysfunctional, our nation will not be functional. If our nation is not functional, our race will not be functional. I'm going to use quotes on race and call us peoples, right? African peoples, because we know what race is and it has no scientific grounding. It was something that was created to back up their false narrative. these invaders. So Umoja is the thing that brings us together. And it's a great way to start the celebration of Kwanzaa, because what better way to start? And I'm loving those African sounds I hear in the background, the chicken. I love that. I just love it. And I'm going to keep it going because it's reminding me of home. But Umoja is the thing that brings us together. So what better way to start the celebration of Kwanzaa than to remind ourselves that we are coming together and we must remain united. And then there's, and today, how do we expand that? We have to be united beyond borders. No more referring to yourself as Nigerian. I am African before I am Nigerian. No more referring to myself as Kenyan. I am African before I am Kenyan. No more, because I was African before these colonizers came and called that place Kenya. I was a child of the Alkebulan, the motherland, the mother of nature, before these colonizers came and called that place Cameroon. Right? You were a child of the Alkebulan before these colonizers came and called that place South Africa. So what are we first? We are children of the Alkebulan, Africans, before we are those national identities that these invaders forced on us. So we must come together as such. Then you have Kujichagulia, and it's pronounced Kujichagulia. That sound in Kiswahili is cha, not ka. There's the sound ka in Kiswahili is k, which is why I spell African with a k, because, and I am also taking back the spelling of African from the Afrikaans, the white people who decided to take our names and take ownership to our land. So that's an intentional use of the letter K in when I spell African, because the sound for Kiswahili, that ka sound, is represented by a K. The cha sound is represented by CHA. So kujichagulia, self-determination. And that means we have to define ourselves, we have to name ourselves, we have to create for ourselves, and we have to speak for ourselves. So no more, and for those of you who follow me, you'll see me in spaces telling white men to step aside and stop telling me how to think, to step aside and stop telling me that I am not being discriminated against, because I get to speak for myself. To step aside and stop telling you how you should go about your business, because you as an African get to speak for yourself. To step aside and stop telling you how you should wear your hair as an African, because you as an African get to choose how you wear your hair as an African. To step aside, I hear Kenya now is banning African clothing in parliament. No, that is because of the influence of Western ways and Western culture and Western people on Kenya. And it's unfortunate that the Kenyan government is not strong enough to stand up in their African self and jichagulia, to be African, unapologetically African, and show up in that parliament in their full African selves. So that's what kujichagulia means. The third principle is ujima. And ujima is collective work and responsibility. And Africans, you know, we've been practicing this for a long time. Those of you who visited your grandmas, those of you who spent holidays with your grandmas in the village, you remember, you go there, we are all in the garden working together, right? You had people who, we called it muedia in Kikamba. It's called muedia, where you have community members who go to one person's garden, they help out. You go to another person's garden, you help out. We're all working together. So that's ujima. And how does it look like today? The Jumuiya ya Nguzo Saba, when we start putting out books, when we start, for example, this very thing we are doing today is ujima. This celebration, the fact that we came together, we coordinated, we brought together all our skills and prepared an event that all of us can be a part of and celebrate. So ujima, and it is our responsibility as Africans to come together. So collective work and collective all of our responsibility as Africans to heal our community, our global African community, to rebuild it, to defend it, and to make sure that it's never, ever again going to be broken. So to build and maintain our community together and make our brothers and sisters' problems our problems, and to solve them together. So no more as an African saying, what is happening to Congo has nothing to do with me. I saw an African online talking about, oh, this is Christmas time. Please stop talking about the problems. Do you always have to talk about? Yes, as long as there are problems with some of our brothers, we can put aside Christmas, especially Christmas, of all things that you would put aside. put aside the well-being of your brothers and sisters for Christmas, a holiday that was brought to you from foreigners. You don't even understand what Christmas is, because when you do your research, Jesus was not even born in December. But that's a topic for another day. The fifth principle is Nia. This happens to be my favorite one. I mean, they're all good, but there's something about having purpose as a people, right? To make our collective vocation the building and developing of our community in order to restore our people to their traditional greatness. We as Africans, we just saw in Ujima that it's all of our responsibility as a collective. We have now to agree on our purpose, and our purpose is to heal our community, our global African community, to rebuild it, and to make sure we put up structures that are going to defend it, making it sustainable for generations to come. So that's our purpose. So everything we do has to be grounded in that. If what you do is taking away from that, you must step away from it. So when we make decisions about what to take on, when we make decisions about what to keep from the modern society, we have to remember Nia, what is our purpose? And as long as it's not going in alignment with the building, the healing, and the defending of our community, you must abandon it. The sixth principle is Kuumba. And you saw the Urban Shaman productions. They showed us what Kuumba is in their skill, in their art. So to do always as much as we can in the way we can in order to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. So our music, always improving our music, our clothing, right? We want to leave our community. I don't want to wake up from my grave 6 feet under, or wherever I'll be in the spirit world roaming, and look at Africans all choked up in suits and farm dresses, not being their African selves. You can't even move an arm, right? I want to see them in their African clothing, able to move around and be proud. The color in our clothing, when you do the research and look at what color does to a people, is very, very important. The other thing too, our agricultural practices, right? That's part of Kuumba. We must make sure that we come up with agricultural practices that are going to leave our community beautiful, our ecosystem, and beneficial to our well-being. So Kuumba is what we do with our hands, right? Whatever we create with our hands must be to leave our community more beautiful and beneficial than we inherited it. So if it's not doing that, then you need to abandon it. And the last and not least principle is Imani. And without faith, all 6 principles, you might as well put them aside and forget about it. Because faith is the thing that keeps you going in the midst of maafa. Let's just say that. And there's a lot of maafa going on today. So you can imagine for a child in Congo to wake up every morning and say, tomorrow will be better. They have to have faith, because today was so bad that the only thing that will keep them saying tomorrow will be better is faith. And so faith is important, to believe with all our heart in our people, our parents, our teachers, our leaders, and the righteousness and victory of our struggle. So we have to believe that we Africans are deserving of liberation, that we Africans are deserving of making our own decisions as far as our economy. We Africans are deserving of making our own decisions as far as our politics. We Africans are deserving of making our own decisions as far as everything. We have to have faith in that. And those are the 7 principles. And what Jumuiya ya Nguzo Saba and what I encourage all Africans today to do is make sure that you're not only practicing these at the end of the year from the 26th of December to the 1st, but daily in your lives, so that we can stay grounded in the spirit of Ubuntu. And all of them culminated is the spirit of Ubuntu.
Wow. I think that is...
You could share number 4. Share number 4.
Oh, okay. Hold on. Tabibu Lashanta. Mm-hmm. Did you want me to say more about it?
You skipped that one.
Oh, I didn't say Ujamaa?
No.
Oh, Oh my goodness. Yes. No. Yes. Thank you so much. Ujamaa. So cooperative economics, yes, indeed. I skipped that one because that word economics always does a thing to my mind. Asante sana Uwakata. Sorry about that. That's actually very essential because that is what is going to heal our economics. This has to do with to build, first of all, I'll read it, to build and maintain our own stores, shops, and other businesses, and to profit from them together. So if you are an African, I'm taking now the United States, and you are somewhere in your city and there are no black stores, right? And when you walk in those stores, you're always mistreated. You're always followed, right? Because they think you're stealing, because apparently we Africans just steal all the time. You cannot be your African self in those stores. What that community needs to do is come together, bring their money together. First of all, before you come together, make sure you stop going to those stores so that you can run them out of business. Yes, I said that. Run them out of business. And then come together, put your monies together, and build an African store where you can all proudly walk into, where you can be treated decently. We build for ourselves. And when we see our fellow Africans building, we support them, especially if they're treated. But remember, and Kumbukeni is going to have a show at the beginning of the year that talks about who is African, right? There are a lot of melanated Africans who are not African because of the practices that they've taken on. They have abandoned their Africanness. So as long as that African is standing in their African way and in their African being, which means they're practicing these principles that we just talked about. They're treating you as a brother. They're treating their community well. They're making sure that what they do with their hands is going to leave their community beautiful and beneficial to the community members. So we will come together and do business together. We as Africans will come together and support each other. When I first came to the United States, my father reached out to his friends and family members to raise money to pay for my ticket to come to the United States. That's Ujamaa. That's cooperative economics. And that's what we all as Africans should do. So as an African, you should not be living in a huge mansion, having all kinds of food, if next door to you is someone who is living in a shack with no food to eat. So if that is you as an African, just know that you are not being African. And that's what Ujamaa is. Asante sana Tabibula Shanta.
All right, I think that's quite understood. We can jump into a whole conversation trying to look into each of the principles. I'll come to one of which I would love to have Dr. Ashanta speak about. It's that one of Iman, faith. And I would love to understand the construct of faith. Does it have to say anything about being Christian, being Muslim, or what actually are we talking about when it comes to matters of faith? Now, this is the reason why I'm asking about that. The reason is this: you get to understand how we have all these colors: red, black, green, put across. We have all these symbols across. And for those that are of Christian origin, they look at the symbol like, this looks like an akkat. This looks like an akkat. So I would love to understand, when we talk about faith, what are we really talking about?
I believe it goes beyond those borders. It goes deep within you. So whatever it is that you believe in, you have to have the faith and stand on that, right? And in the instance of what we're speaking about is believing in our people and that we can come together and make those decisions together and not leave one another, for lack of better words, out to dry. Right? We are having faith in one another, even though we may have had experience that have darkened our spirits, right? Dampened our spirits about our own people. But when we look at what has been done to our people, we have to have some kind of compassion and understanding that we are in this place or in this space because of what has been done for generations. So we have to dig deep when it comes to having that faith, right? Because we've had those experiences that could tell us otherwise. Let's not support one another, because and you hear it here in the United States. Well, no, that's a Black business. I'm not going to go there. They're going to treat you this kind of way and that kind of way, because we think that the other is the standard. And we have to get back to that. The things that we, as our essence, our being, is our standard, right? Someone else's standard has been put on us. So we have to dig deep and believe within our people and have that faith. And it goes beyond religion and all of that.
Wow.
Because I was going to quickly add to, and I have to learn how to multitask, bring back our sister and brother. So the irony of Christians calling Kwanzaa a cult. If I ever did see the Christianity is a cult. You go and walk into a church and you eat the body of Christ and you drink the blood of Christ. Are we serious right now? We all now have become what do you call cannibals? If that's not a cult, if you all talk about, oh, we cannot wear this in church, and you all just follow, you don't even question. You all talk about men cannot marry for the Catholics, and you all just follow, you don't question, especially when those men are doing horrible things because they have been denied that essence of being their human self. So if there is anything that ever resembled cultish behavior, Christianity is it. And so for the Christian, I'll say, look in the mirror when you start criticizing Kwanzaa.
Wow. That's boom. All right. Second to that, I would love, this is 1966 when we are talking about the principles coming alive, and we are talking about creative economics being a principle which Dr. Maulana had to emphasize on. Prince, how would you explain that? Has it been effective to this date, or we still have a long way in order to live the principle of Umoja? Or rather, Ujama.
I don't get a question, brother.
Okay, the question is, this is 1966 when these principles were advocated for. So one of the principles is that of creative economics, the essence that we should come together for the advancement of the development of our nation or us as individuals. So living across the ages, now this is the 21st century. Has the principle been effective? Has it lived its standards, or we are lagging behind?
Okay, so I think it would be very nice for us to check out the backgrounds the backgrounds that led to the establishment of Kwanzaa in the first place in 1966. So you can imagine that early in the 90s, blacks were not seen as standard humans; they were seen as subhumans, And
Melanated Africans, my brother.
Yes, melanated Africans were seen as what's it called? Subhumans, and the social Darwinist theory brought up some kind of ideology that made us feel like we were a kind of inferior beings to them and everything. So you find people like Africans like George Washington Carver in the United States that did very well for himself, Booker T. Washington and the rest of them. And so you see that they tried as much as possible to bring up and to spread the African ideology. And the essence for this is because they wanted Africans to grow and come together. So from that time, it was very important that Africans united in solving their problems, united in tackling common issues, united in making everything become the way they wanted it. So I would say that it was a huge success from the very initial time, because if it wasn't, I don't think we would be where we are today. So the fact that they were being consciously reminded that as Africans, you must work together if you want to break free from all of this. So I think that at some point, Martin Luther King Jr. also had to see the need to stand up for Africa and then cooperate with other Africans and melanated ones to stand up for the rights of Africans. You see, people like Rosa Parks and the rest of them, they had that ideology and they came together for it. So I feel that, yes, it was a very huge success. It went well and it is still going well. And I feel that although we can get better at it, because especially our own generation moving into the next level, but yes, these principles, these very basic principles are what I think are very key in ensuring that Africans get to where they ought to get to.
Wow, that's a beautiful insight. A quick overview into what the community is saying. I'm gonna have issues with pronouncing names here, but Mr. Masara, I think it's a Mr. says, but in Zay George Washington Carver died a poor man because his community did not support him. Again, the importance of community. So we need to have a community-centered life if we are to develop each other. And Kalen makes a comment on faith, saying, if your faith does not encompass you seeing yourself in your people, and your people in you, even if they are not what you feel is the right way, what is it really? So she's putting a question, a thought there to say it's about seeing yourself in other people. And of course, we have Abraham Hykens making a statement, says our unity is still not clear. It's a question. I think he's trying to make an emphasis. And then there is another comment saying faith is crucial and it's lacking out here. So it's necessary that we are able to put across and show that what we really what we do believe in as people. So continue putting your comments in the comment section. At times we'll be going through them, but then that's a good engagement we are having out there. All right, talking about creativity, that's Kuumba. I think we should take a narrative and appreciate. So we are talking about arts, we are talking about culture, and we are talking about a heritage, one of which is that of Africa is known for its nice food. Africa is known for its nice dances. Africa is known for its nice dressing. Let's take a moment and appreciate what is it really that Africa is known for in as far as food is concerned. So we're going to have a presentation in short where we're going to appreciate food from across. There's been something prepared for us to see, and then we'll make a commentary about that aspect.
Good afternoon. Greets you all from wherever you are. So join me as I eat. This is called okra soup, freshly prepared by Hello Africa. So good afternoon. Greets you all from wherever you are. So join me as I eat. This is called okra soup, freshly prepared by me. You know, wow, this looks so delicious. So delicious. So okra soup is made from okra fruits. And if you want to prepare this soup, what you just need to do is buy okra, the amount you want, and buy the ingredients you'd like to use in making it. It is crayfish, fish, meat, cow skin, which is pomo, known as pomo here, over here, ugu leaf, you know,
pepper, salt, and Maggi. And how do you prepare this soup? First off, you put your water, put your ingredients in the pot, and you start boiling. Put your meats, your fish, cook very well, and you add your palm oil. It depends on how you want to make it. You know, some people would like to fry their okra. For me, I prefer putting the oil inside my sauce, and afterwards you let it boil for some time, and slice your okra. As it's boiling, you slice your okra, then you get to put the okra. You put your oil. Yeah, I said that. You put your okra. You don't allow it boil for so long because it's going to denature it. You know, okra is very nutritious, especially when it's not so denatured when you're cooking it. But I feel so, this is so delicious. I'm actually at the office, you know. I made it in my office. Yeah, it's so delicious. Now this is one of the soups, the dishes of the Easterners. We have several of them. Very delicious, and it's highly nutritious. Like I said, this is okra soup, and beside it is called eba. This is gari made from cassava, you know. So this is okra soup, highly nutritious in vitamin K, which help your blood to clot, and vitamin C also, you know. This is common. This soup is common in the eastern region of Nigeria, West Africa, you know. Lots of nutritional benefits. Now what I'm using to eat it is called gari. This is gari made from cassava, you know. You get to process it and then fry, and then it turns out to be this, and you make it so delicious. I know you would want to join me. And this is freshly prepared by me. Yeah, I made it. You can join me. If you wish to have it, I can make it for you and export it to your country. Yeah. Forgive my manners. My name is Juliet Chiku, and I made this. Yes.
Called Botswana. Botswana is a landlocked country between South Africa. This is sorghum, a staple food for Botswana, from a country called Botswana. Botswana is a landlocked country between South Africa, Namibia, Zambia, and Zimbabwe. I am going to show you how to prepare sorghum porridge, even though this product can be created in so many ways. So to create the porridge, you add the sorghum in a bowl and pour cold water and mix into a paste, a thick paste, but not too thick. You mix it to make that paste. On the other side, you boil water. Once the water has reached boiling point, you add the paste and begin to stir. So this sorghum, you can have it for breakfast, as I'm doing. You can also have it for lunch or dinner. For those who prepare it for lunch or dinner, they can have relish on the side. This relish can be meat or just greens, or both. This is the water boiling. I'm using an electric stove. So we're gonna mix the paste and the water together with low heat. You mix it to avoid the buildups of lumps. You mix until you have a soft paste like that one, a smooth one, if I may say, and then you allow it to simmer for 10 minutes. The cooking duration differs from the type of stove one can use. Some cook in the fire, some on gas stove.
and I am using an electric stove. That is why I'm saying the duration can differ. This is the porridge, done. And you can have it with sugar as I'm doing. You can add milk, but I'm not adding any milk. Some can have it as it is. It's really nice, and I can urge all of you to taste it. It's smooth and it's so nutritious for the body.
Okay, it looks like we lost Brother Toko. That was great, and we also lost Dada Juliet, who will, when we get her back, because we're having internet problems, we're connecting beyond borders, and that's another thing we need to do, right? We need to have umoja, ujima, ujamaa, and make sure we have an African internet connection, so that we can always rely on it. So Dada Juliet Ihuchuku is the one who made the okra soup that you are all watching and salivating. Nimekuona wewe ndugu Ilarote Masala ukimeza mate. All of you salivating, wishing you were there sitting with her and using the best utensil man ever got, which is your own fingers, right? And we say in Africa that food tastes better when you eat it with your fingers. And you could hear Dada Chuku, as she was talking, you could hear her just enjoying the food. She couldn't help her African self making the sounds of enjoyment. I remember my son, when he was a child, he used to sit and eat, and my daughter too. And literally when eating, as a child, right? Because then they're not teenagers who are checking how they behave. They're young babies who do not care about who's watching them or judging them. They would sit at the table and that was Dada Juliet. Karibu, Ndugu Toko. Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And Dada Juliet.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. The network did its gymnastics.
I know, right? We might be getting Dada Ihechuku in a minute. So it seems like the network is still doing its gymnastics. And yeah, let's talk about the food. Tabibu Lashanta, what did you think as you saw that okra boiling up and infusing all those flavors while we wait for Ndugu Toko to come back in?
When she made the comment that some of you like it fried.
That was you?
That would be me. But it did take me back to as an African American, and my mother being born in the South in Mississippi. She makes dishes that resemble and we eat in a way that is very similar to the way that Dada Juliet was showing us. Cabbage and cornbread and greens, and with the cornbread. And I specifically remember seeing individuals in my family use their hands to take the cornbread and sop up the greens or the cabbage. And I too have done it myself. So when we don't see from the motherland and we just do, but then when we do see how things are done in the motherland, we see the connection. So again, we go back to the connection is there somehow, even though it tried to, the trauma that we've experienced over the years and over the generations, still something continued to be passed on in some kind of way. It can always be connected back. So yes, it was very familiar when looking at that. It was very, very familiar.
And Tabibu Lashanta saying that reminds me, I encourage you all to find an African, those of you in the diaspora, those of you on the continent have it. And I see Dada Ihechuku is here. I'll bring her up. Hold on. I see she's freezing a little, so let me give her another minute. Oh, she's here. No, it's still acting up. Hello, sister. You have left us all salivating. So tell us.
Hello. Good evening once again. My internet have been acting up, so I decided to come outside. I hope that's fine.
Yes, you're sharing the African sun with us, so that is
Okay,
fine.
okay, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, hope you enjoyed the video.
We did. We did.
Sorry,
Stay,
my
stay,
internet
right,
was acting up.
stay
Okay,
right there.
so okra soup. Like I said,
Yeah, we need to do something about African internet. This is a call to action to all of us. Those African techies, we need to get it done. Yeah, and you all need to take those wazungus out of there because they will give it to you, but they won't give it to you 100%. So you're there relying on it, and it's not even serving you. So yes, Ndugu Ifo, Dada Ihechuku, I'm going to take you out quick, and then when I see you've come back looking like you're moving with the times on your internet, I'll bring you back up. Tell us about your take on the foods that we saw. Tabibu Lashanta, have you ever heard of the word porridge before? Did you know it growing up?
I've heard of it, but we ate grits and oatmeal.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the consistency of grits is more like the porridge that she was demonstrating.
Mm-hmm. And you all have two ways you eat grits, and just like I'm trying very hard to be careful with my
It's
words.
controversial.
Just like the controversy of jollof rice between the Senegalese, the Ghanaians, and the
Yes,
Nigerians, you have a controversy on grits and how to eat it. So what are
yes.
the two ways?
Butter and salt, and some people do sugar. So yeah,
I do sugar. I have no business putting shrimp. People put shrimp in their grits.
yeah.
No, I do sugar all day, and my sugar is honey, by the way. I don't do the processed sugar. So honey in my grits all day, my porridge. So despite the fact that we are all separated by borders, we kept those African practices, right? Our porridge that kept us warm when it was cold and just gave us that internal hug. Ndugu Ifo, you and African food, and you are probably going to be able to have it for dinner tonight because you are on the land. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So just like you said, it's something I could, I mean, get at the snap of my fingers. I mean, that okra soup is my wife's favorite, and she's always making it. So it's always in the refrigerator because she wants to eat it, and so I mean, the kids also want to eat it like that. So these are the original things that we eat in Africa. Our ability to eat natural vegetables, fresh from the farm, fresh from from nature, and then we get to eat them, and then they make us look way younger than our age. And then when people see you, they say, "Oh, how old are you? You don't look your age at all because you eat fresh food." Yeah, so because you eat fresh food, and and we get to stay longer, to live longer, and that's the beauty of it. Yeah, so it's a very delicious and good-looking okra soup that Juliet showed us, and also the Abel from Anita that is common amongst the Southern Africans. Those are the very important things, and they are very beautiful. Yeah, that's the uniqueness of Africa's food. I really enjoy watching it.
Mm-hmm. And also the sorghum, there's another way of making it where you ferment it. So if you want that sour taste, you do what Dada Anita, who's not able to connect with us today, again, due to the internet, but you do what she did when she mixed it with the cold water and you put it in a container and close it and let it sit for a day or two. So it starts to ferment. And when it gets that sourness, you make it. That's another type of porridge, fermented porridge that you can make from sorghum, corn, or millet. So yes, things from our childhood that it takes me back to my grandma. I was speaking to Tabibu Lashanta this morning, and I was asking her if they have snow, and the only time I like snow is when I'm in the house having some nice warm porridge, and it's there outside, away from me, not slushy and all that. Ndugu Aliyu, I think Prince Ifo, we can move on. Brother Toko is not back with us yet, so I think we can move on to the spoken word by Ndugu Aliyu.
Yeah, true.
Okay. Brother Aliyu, are you there, Suleiman? Let's see, Brother Toko might be back. How are we doing, our brother from Malawi? Those people decided to let your internet free?
Now it's freed.
It's yours. Usukani ni wako basi, chukua.
Where are we? What have I missed?
We talked about the food. We gave our observations about the food. So we were lining up our brother Suleiman to do his spoken word, but you can take us there yourself.
Then let's have him make his yes, sir, you have your stage.
Oh, there we go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Very.
Can you hear me?
Yes, of course.
Yes, that's great.
You're audible, sir.
Yes, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Once again, my name is Alius Lehman, as I said earlier, unapologetic Pan-Africanist. And I'm glad to meet each one of you to celebrate KWANZAA, which is an African Culture and Heritage Day. And I think when we talk about culture, we all know that it's the total way of life of the people. And there was a saying, as long as the lion do not have historians, it is the exploit of the hunter that will be celebrated rather than the lion. You know, in the post-colonial Africa, we have had leaders in the continent who have tried to practice a government which is in African context. And I think the former or the independent president of Tanzania, Mulimo Julius Kambarage Nyerere, is an exceptional leader who tried to introduce Ujamaa. And we all know that Ujamaa is part and parcel of the principles of KWANZAA. You know, before the white men came to our shores, we had the political system we are operating in Africa, in which the leaders is called the Oba, the Alafin, the Sultan, the Sariki, the Emir, or whatever. And in that council, he had a council, and in that council, every religion, every tribe, every interest group, every profession was represented. There was no form of an opposition distinct from the government, but there is an opposition within. If any matter came up for discussion, people will freely express their views. At the end of the day, if agreement is reached and decision was taken, it will be binding on all. That was the system that was operating in those days. Muallim Inyarere practiced a similar system. He introduced what he called Ujamaa, which is familyhood, as we made mention here. Muallim Inyarere practiced Ujamaa, and he have succeeded under this system of Ujamaa. We remember as a result of in 1964, after the introduction of Ujamaa in Tanzania, he succeeded in welding 120 ethnic groups in Tanzania into one nation. Do you remember at that time we have Zanzibar and we have Tanganyika? But as a result of that system, he has succeeded in welded rather 120 ethnic groups in Tanzania. And we now have Tanzania, in Tanganyika and Zanzibar, and we now have Tanzania. We have practiced this. And let me say this. There was a person called Nana Kabina Ikesi, the fifth. Is a Ghanaian traditional ruler and a former lecturer in political science. He says, most African countries forget that when we talk about culture, we are talking about the economy. We are talking about politics. We are talking about peace. We are talking about security. But we have been trained and made to believe that when we are talking about African culture means dances, which are performed by Africans. And you see that whenever you see an African leader from an African country arriving in an African airport, you never see that in Europe. There are you will see dancers dancing for the president arriving in an airport. You will see some people in the state of semi-nakedness dancing for those presidents, and we call that culture. That is not only culture. Culture is a lot more of the more. We can find our culture in economy. We can find our culture in peace. We can find our culture in security. Not only dancing and singing. Our culture is a lot more than that. And the white men were very clever. This is how I understand how they remove our Africanness out of us. Many men have tried to understand what they did to us, and they make us to forget our culture and our Africanness. Many men have tried to understand what they did to us. I'm not referring to all of them, but I'm referring to a dramatization, which some of you will be familiar with. The African American Alex Haley produced a film called Root. And in Root, he dramatizes the life of a young man uprooted from Jufuri village in what is now known as the Gambia, Kunta Kinte. And they take Kunta Kinte to the United States of America. And when they took him to the United States of America, the first thing that they did to him was to beat him up, that he may change his name so that Kunta Kinte is beaten out of him. And they introduced a new being called Toby. That is what they did to us. They beat our Africanness out of us. And when we are all empty, then they filled us with something alien. Alien. And we begin to think like them. We begin to think our hair is not good enough, so that our women must buy wigs from dead women in Asia. So that our women must reject their skin. They bleach it that they may become whiter. So that our women can remove their eyebrow and eyelashes. So that our women can paint their lips red. This is what they did to us. And they did that to us because they know that our women are the fountain of life. Are the fountain of life. And that once they change our women, we, the men who are weak, we can be changed. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think, let me give this example before I conclude. Let me give this example. There was a saying, no civilization has ever known real development in the language of another. Think about this. No civilization has ever known genuine development in the language of another. Think about this. The Danes have transacted by using the Danish language if you go to Scandinavian countries. The Finlands have transacted by using the Finland's language. In Europe, the 27 countries in Europe, when they are addressing the European Union Assembly, they are using their local languages. Come to Africa and see. We are in our eloquent best when we speak English. Not Kiswahili, not Igbo, not Yoruba, not Hausa. No, we are at our eloquent best when we speak English. I think we must decolonize this primitive path. There was a saying, the personal conquest is the beginning of true leadership. If we don't conquer ourselves as Africans, we are going nowhere. I cannot label you with long speech. This will be the end of my submission. Thank you very much.
Wow. No real development in a borrowed language. What do you say about that, Dr. Rashanta Williams?
Can you repeat your question? Sorry about that. I was reading.
I'm quoting Ariu. He made a statement saying no development in a borrowed language. What's your commentary about that?
If we, can you? Yep, I'm unmuted. If we look at how our true selves were, our language was taken from us and given the borrowed language, right? So the roots of the borrowed language are not our roots. So when we go to commune, yes, we become familiar with the language and we learn to communicate with one another through that language. But to go to the depths of who we are and connect back to our culture, because that language isn't our original culture. So in order to connect back to our original culture, we have to connect with our original languages. So
Wow.
yeah, very
Thank
powerful.
you. Thank you.
I think so.
Sister Dugu,
Can I say
do you
something?
agree? Oh, yes, go ahead.
Dugu Suleiman, yeah.
Yes, yes, I think I agree with her because I once again I agreed with Chinua Achebe. Once again, he was addressing English language in a very interesting way. He said the British may have stolen many good things, and not only the British, all the colonizers, the Portuguese, the French, the Belgians, and others, and the Spaniards. He said they have stolen many good things from us, but there is also certain things we also stole from them. Their language. We Africanize it. We Africanize it, and we use it for good effect. And the ability to speak many languages is also an advantage. Thank you.
I like that you said that because the thing the Africans did was make a pidgin and patois out of it, right? Which
Yes,
now ownership
yes.
back, and it became ours. And those two languages are grounded. For those of you, again, I said, find me on LinkedIn, on YouTube. You can find the emerging Al Kebulan. We had a powerful session yesterday with Baba Eli Anderson, and he speaks about this. And he says that our languages, those two languages we created out of English to Africanize them, are grounded in African grammar, right? So you're right, we did a flip on them. And we made them African. But we know that the original reason that they taught us those languages is to take away from ourselves, right? The original reason that we are taught English is to serve, to be of service. Those of you who grew up in Africa, who've grown up in Africa, like myself, you remember we were beaten up if we spoke anything but English in school, right? You were not supposed to, or you had to wear the what was it? The thing that they gave you to wear around your neck that said you had violated that rule, right? I forget what the wording was, but it wasn't good. I am this. Literally, you had to wear it all day if you spoke Kikamba at school or you spoke Kiswahili when it wasn't supposed to be spoken. So they forced us to speak English. And you're right. If we are speaking another's language, which means we are following another's culture, we cannot serve ourselves. If we're not serving ourselves, which means we're serving our community, we cannot develop. And therefore, to continue relying on another's language is to be dependent on them for development. And when they do not have your development at their best interest, then you will not develop. And so the way we can embrace, hold on real quick. Yeah, thank you. The way we can embrace our development, the way we can go back to developing who we are is embracing our languages. And therefore, we have recognized, especially when we consider that we need to reconnect with those who are taken off the motherland, instead of all of us. And you can, right? We can all learn Yoruba, we can all learn Hausa, we can all learn Igbo, we can all learn Twi, we can all learn Kosa, Shona, Kikamba, Kikuyu, Kiluo, all of those words, languages. But the one uniting us is Kiswahili. And therefore, we must start there because our unity is essential. So let us start. Do not tell me as an African, I'm learning French if you do not speak Kiswahili. Do not tell me as an African you're learning German if you do not speak Kiswahili. I'm just saying, now we have to hold each other accountable. Don't tell me as an African you're learning whatever other European language if you're not learning Kiswahili. And if you have an African event and you're showcasing Portuguese, French, and English, and you're not showcasing Kiswahili, it's questionable, is all I have to say. So yes, Ndugu Toko.
All right, let's. I'd love to see some thoughts in the comment section. I would quickly go through some of them. Now there is this saying which say the keepers and teachers are culturally grounding, and also there is another thing which says we are more easy to conquer without our own language. The power in the colonizer's hands. The power is in the colonizer's hands if we have to communicate in their time and to elevate the language. And of course, Akata makes a statement to say language is a gateway to control behavior. You can not only vote against the people whose value you share. Baba Amos Wilson, a commentary from Masala. And Akata again comes in and made a statement to say language frames your thoughts. So it looks as if language is that one primary thing we must focus on. I would love to project a thought to say this is the Organization of African Union, which will later be translated into the AU, comes in and makes a statement. The statement was to affirm the commitment of the member state to the coordination and harmonization of their policies in the domain of education and cultural cooperation. That was one of the statements that underlies their charter. Now, coming to the factor of education, I would just love to have your comment. What would you say? Should Kiswahili become a foundational language in all African education? Or what should we do about it? If language is a key and language frames our thought, how best should we cultivate it to the best of our development as a country or as a continent, so to say?
Well, I'll say I'll go first so that I can deal with the stage and bring people back up. I'll say that we, first of all, Jumuiya ya Nguzo Saba, which is one of them, myself and Dada Tabibu Lashanta are members of, are making sure that we bring back Kiswahili. We're going to be translating a lot of the English books that we currently read to learn about ourselves into Kiswahili. We're going to be writing a lot of Kiswahili children's books. We're going to be writing a lot of Kiswahili books so that we can spread the use of Kiswahili and bring back the art, the kuumba, right, of writing our culture so that it can go through generations and we have records of it, and reading so that we do not allow any room for mental colonization again, so that we can know our ways. But yes, part of making sure that we unite in our language is bringing back Kiswahili in the schools. So when I hear, for example, that Kenya is leaning towards a future where Kiswahili will be optional in school, I am angered by that. Right? Forget about being saddened. Sadness that is not doing anything for me. I'm angered by that. And my anger leads me to say we need to take action against that. That must not be allowed in Africa, because our languages is what is going to help us develop. Tanzania did it brilliantly. They were able to teach math, science, and everything else using Kiswahili. In Tanzania, they literally taught everything in Kiswahili. And you know very well there are geniuses who've come out of Tanzania. We can start by naming Abdul Rahman Mohamed Babu, an economist who grew up in Tanzania, being taught math, science, economics, and everything in Kiswahili, right? We Africans, speaking our own Africans, were able, you've seen it in Egypt, Sudan, and everywhere, right? Or in Zambia, in Ghana, evidence of us being able to put our scientific skills into practice and build. So this notion that English is a language of development and we must use it in order to develop is a false notion and a false narrative. We can do just the same with our languages. The point of language is to communicate. So if we can communicate, we can exchange ideas. If we have people amongst us who have scientific ideas, all we need to do is communicate that. And if the West says they have a science that they have created, we can always translate it into our own languages. We can say, okay, this is what you say that means. Oh, ke niki, masia niki, onu kwika. So I will say that in my language, and me and my fellow African will understand what we said and will get to work and build it. So yes, it's essential.
Well, what do you get to comment on the same, Dr. Rashanta?
I'll pick up where she left off. It is essential. Right. I currently work in a school district where we have, like I spoke about earlier, we've had an influx of refugees and immigrants into our community because we have a refugee resettlement agency in the area. And so one of the cultures and languages that have come to us are individuals who speak Swahili. And within our school district, that number is growing. And so we looked at, okay, there's a need here to, yes, the the English language is being taught because the curriculum is being taught in English. So we want to make sure that the students are successful in their learning by acquiring that language. But we also know the importance of maintaining your cultural language, right? Your native language. And so what do we do when we assess the situation? We hire two individuals, two teachers from Kenya to come here and teach within our school district that has the language. And so when those students encounter those teachers, they are encountering someone who not only speaks their language, understands their culture, understands where they're coming from, and can use that as an entry point for them to be able to access what is expected of them. So, is the language important? Absolutely. It is not a sub language, it is a language that is equal to, right? So, if we're going to offer offer languages, we should offer different languages and know that those languages also offer an opportunity to show that it's not a deficiency. Those students aren't deficient in the content or in their academics. We just need to be able to help them to access it. And if they can prove to us or show us, not prove, show us that they have the ability to do the work by using their native language, then we have a responsibility to offer that opportunity. So
Wow.
it is essential. It definitely is essential.
Prince, how do you get to comment about that language essential for development in a youthful generation like the one we have?
Yeah, so language is very essential because I think it's very important that young people, especially our own dispensation, understand the need to stay true to our language. But like Aliyu said in this presentation, that we try to speak English in a more to be more grammatically correct than we speak our own language. So you can imagine staying in a circle with you and Aliyu, for instance, Toko. And so I make a grammatical blunder in English. You all laugh at me and say, "Oh, can you imagine? They couldn't even speak English." But I mean, that's not my language. That's not my language. And that's supposed to be something that should be secondary to me. My language should be the primary one and should be the most penultimate, if you ask me. But because of the colonization mentality, which we have to decolonize, we have not realized and placed our language in the right path. And so I think, well, Ambassador is here, so he will speak. And I know at the African Union, what they try to do is to make sure that they have a balance of languages. And then they introduced Kiswahili as one of the key languages and operational languages of the African Union. So, yes, it's very important. I'm really looking forward to an African society where the traditional languages would be used to teach, like they did in Tanzania, teach physics, teach chemistry. I want to see how they would call all those, what's it called? All these chemical equations and all these chemical codes, how they would, represent them in Kiswahili. I don't know what they call, So that's basically what it is. But I mean, language is very important, and I think we can develop more if we use our language. We can develop more if we stick to our own originality, and it's as more important as language, because language is a very important tool in a communal or national development. So I think it's key. Thank you, my brother.
All right. Quickly, that is a good commentary. Let me hear from Dr. Lashanta before we hear from Ambassador Salahaman. Looking at KWANZAA, is there a future in the upcoming generations? What are the prospects that we are looking at?
Have to get my notes. I did write some things down here. And when I looked at the future of KWANZAA, I looked at myself as the future of KWANZAA because I didn't grow up with it, right? And so I heard about it many years ago, but didn't dive into it. And so as an adult now, a professional now, and being exposed to it, it is a responsibility, I say, to be able to teach it to others. And I relate everything back to my experience as an educator, because there's so many similarities as you think about as a teacher. We can teach many different things and in different spaces. But as an educator, um, if I'm going to teach my students, I have to know where they are, right? I have to meet them where they are. So once we learn what it is that needs to be shared, then we have to assess how we are going to share this information, because some people might not be ready for the full gamut of information. So, how do you take it in bite sized pieces and be able to share it? And then once they have that understanding, then feed them some more, right? Edify them some more with the information. So I think events like this are crucial. And I'll refer back to something that Dada Nduku said early on. This isn't something that we should do just now. This is something that we should be doing throughout the year, right? Because these principles don't come just in this season. They need to be practiced throughout the year. So hosting events like this throughout the year, or we intentionally making it part of our intentionality to engage ourselves with it. We get online right now. We have access to YouTube and all the other social media um, outlets where we want to go and find out different things. We talk to Google, we talk to Siri, and we ask them all different kinds of questions. Here now, where the intentionality comes in, where we take it upon ourselves to say, hey, Google, tell me what the 7 principles of KWANZAA are, right? Then you break that into pieces. How can you internalize that and then become that vessel to be able to share it with others? And so I was sharing with my sister Nduku earlier, before we all began, how I am going to make that step to introduce it to my family. So um, we are coming together for a Christmas celebration. We are coming together for that time. And during that time, we are also going to talk about Kwanzaa, because you have to start somewhere, right? And so when we come together on Sunday, I'll just share the principles with them. And then when the 26th does come around, I'll say, hey, family, I'm jumping online and I'll be talking about Umoja. So if y'all want to jump online with me, let's jump online. We'll talk about it as questions. I'm learning just like you're learning. So your questions are going to help me to become better and more knowledgeable about the situation, about the content that is Kwanzaa, right? But that's starting with my people, right? Starting right in my own family. And so that hopefully that spreads. That's where we start, right? We start with the people that we are the closest to, and then hopefully the message begins to penetrate within them, and then they can then go out into their individual families and begin to practice that. I also had a note here that we need to make sure that we let it happen organically. Because if we're trying to force things upon people, it can turn them away. And that's not what we want to do. We want it to happen organically. And a lot of times when you do something organically, it has to start with you. They have to see you practicing it. They have to see you practicing what you're going to be preaching to them, because they will throw it back in your face, right? You're telling me to do this, but I don't see it in you. But also understanding that we are all, again, starting in different places. So we have to be gracious enough to understand that about other individuals, that they are starting in different places, but we have to be willing to find out where they are in their space. And if they're not willing to accept the information, be okay with that. Be okay with that, because everybody is starting in a different place in their own knowledge and understanding. So again, we have to be intentional, let it happen organically, and be the example. Be the example to be able to share it with your family so that they can begin to ask those questions, and do it in bite-sized pieces.
Wow. I think you have the point. You have the point. But I would love to understand. Let me do the context. We should be the ones to start to teach, and we start with our community, and to the end we let it build organically. I think these are the 3 points you've highlighted. Now, there is an emphasis of a community there, and we are highly moving into a society which is global society, where we no longer have boundaries existing, where we are pushing towards integration, which means we have to assimilate and become that global village. Now, we are talking about a people who want to celebrate their culture in a world which is rapidly evolving into a global community. How should we balance that?
How should we balance? First of all, you know what, Baba Hamad, since you joined us late, why don't you take that first?
Thank you so much for having me, and good afternoon. And apologies for joining a bit late. I was part of a Peace and Security Council conversation that just ended now. And thank you for the invitation. In fact, I have been enjoying the conversation that that has been taking place so far. And I would like to begin by just sharing a few comments before I respond directly to the question raised. First of all, the African Union recognized the importance of languages as a tool for communication. The African Union officially has now English, Arabic, French, Portuguese, Swahili, and Spanish as official languages. But if you look, for example, at the European Union, which is a sister organization to the African Union, if I can call it that way, the European Union has currently 27 languages as part of the languages used within the organization. The Organization of American States has 2, that is Spanish and English. ASEAN has officially about 7 languages, recognizing Filipinos and other languages in the Japanese and Korean and others. So I think as a starting point, and before we say that our African languages are quite important, and which is the true important for us as Africans, we need to acknowledge a fact that we live in a world that is smaller than a village today. And for us to communicate with the outside world and to benefit from the achievements and the success and successful stories in the global community, I think we need to really have access to a language or two that will allow us to understand the messages that will come from the outside world. In that case, at least we will know what is good for us and what is really bad for us as Africans. This is number one. Number two, it is very important for us to look into our languages as a tool to assist us as Africans to develop the Africa we want and the Africa we deserve. But the reality on the ground is different. If you take the case of Ethiopia today, during the war the war against the Tigray in the north, during that time, if you speak Tigrinya, which is a local language, which is an African language, you become a target, whether you are of Tigray origin or not. just speaking the language makes you a target for the military. And it is the other way around now. If you speak Amharic in the Amhara region, you become also a target. So local African languages are being used to identify, enemies, as we say, during conflicts. In Sudan today, if you speak Arabic, you are saved. If you speak broken Arabic or no Arabic, you are not saved because you are considered of non-Arab origin, and then you become a target. And that is why now we see more killing happening in Darfur region than even during the past 20 years of war in Darfur. And this is happening, in fact, in many other countries, in Nigeria and elsewhere. So what I'm trying to say is, unfortunately, our concept of understanding our our local languages as African needs to be reshaped. And I'm saying need to be reshaped for two reasons. Number one, because in many cases, the language you inherited, it is not really the origin of the language, or it is not as it was originated in many cases. Now, if you speak Swahili in Zanzibar, you are considered speaking the perfect Swahili, because that is where the origin of Swahili is. You move to the mainland, Tanzania, they will say, your Swahili is damaged by English because of the mainland being subjected to a colonial time from the British time. If you move to Kenya, they will say, your Swahili is quite sick now. It has been affected by a flu or cold. And then if you move to Uganda, they will say, Swahili has been buried in Uganda. That is the famous concept of Swahili is healthy in Zanzibar, getting sick in Tanzania, severely sick in Kenya, dying in Tanzania. This is only for one language. The same goes for Fulani language, for example. If you speak Fulani and you are in Nigeria, that means your Fulani is different from those who live in Niger, those who live in Mali, those who live in Senegal, those who live elsewhere in the western part of Africa. Why? Because the Fulani is originated in the northern part of Nigeria, and that is why they believe that is where the best Fulani is spoken. And why all of this debate is happening? Because of one reason, because our history as African was not written by us as African. Our history as African, unfortunately, was written by others. And that is why in that history that was written, we were told what is good for us and what is bad of us, and we believed in it. So I think when we are talking about languages, we need to link the conversation to the mindset. What I mean by that is, in many cases now, if you go to the market and you find a product, you want to go to the market and buy milk or coffee. If the coffee is made in China and made in America and made in Brazil, you will buy it. But if it is made in Nigeria or made in Kenya or Zambia or Zimbabwe, you will say, this is an African thing, I will not buy it. The same goes for many other things. I recently discovered that Ghana produces cars, but not a single Ghanaian is driving these cars in Ghana. The cars, they are driven in Niger, in Mali, in good numbers, but not in Ghana. Why? Because the Ghanaians believe in Hyundai and Toyota and Nissan and Mercedes and Chevrolet and whatever. The same goes for a company that is also making very good cars in Nigeria. But I was also shocked that Nigerians don't even buy these cars. And they're cheaper than the cars that are imported from Japan and elsewhere. So what I'm trying to say is, dear colleagues, before we begin the conversation of which language is better for us as Africans, we need to make sure that we as Africans are, one, proud to be Africans, number one. And that this black color, green color, or yellow color we have is better, it's beautiful. We should not wait for others to tell us, no, this black is not beautiful, bleach it to become white. This short hair we have is beautiful. We don't have to spend $20 billion a year in beauty supplies. $20 billion a year can build how many schools, how many hospitals, how many universities? But unfortunately, $20 billion a year are spent in beauty supplies, human hair, nails, and bleaching creams. So it's again about the mindset. And that is why I'm quite worried, to be honest with you, about the next generation. And let me tell you why. I have been traveling around the continent for the last 10 years or so. And in fact, every country that I visit, I try my best to go out of my official mission to visit some of the villages and the rural areas around the capital or a little bit far from so I can at least understand the culture and the socio-economic issues that are faced within the rural areas of our African countries. And in many cases, when I visit some African rural areas, I find young boys with very low trouser, with very strange haircut, with some tattoos where I don't know, and with the story is long. But you know what? They don't speak even a word in English. They can say good morning, hello, you, thank you, but the rest is in local languages. They don't speak anything else but the local language. But the culture is not local. The culture is no longer African culture. So we have a serious issue here. If our language is not serving the purpose of rooting the culture, the African culture, that we believe in as African people, then we have a problem. That means our future is in limbo. That means our future is not certain. That means we will not even know what is going to happen within the next 20 years. I don't want to really dominate the conversation, but let me just conclude highlighting 3 major issues that I think we need to maybe, during this conversation or future conversation, to try to address. Number 1, Africa as it is now, with all of this colonial inheritance, was able to produce a huge number of scholars. But unfortunately, almost 90% of all of these brains are drained through migration to other continents. If you open the medical directory in any state in the US, 90%, if not more, of African descent or African names. The same goes for those who are in fact, I was surprised to know that the one who is running the national health care system in the UK is an African of Nigerian origin. But he was never promoted to the rank of minister simply because he was not born in the UK. And he runs the biggest healthcare system in the world, and that is the British healthcare, with all of this money that we know that is involved in the process. And by the way, despite the changes of all these prime ministers in the last few years, the guy kept his position because simply they couldn't find better than he is. He is one of the best in the history of the national health system in the history of the UK. So this is issue number 1. What we really need to do, we need to really, number 1, evaluate the education system we have today. Before we decide that we don't need this language or we don't need that language, let's evaluate the education system. Because in our African culture today, unfortunately, I want my children to either become doctors or engineers. That's it. Because they will make good money if they are doctors or engineers. But I would not encourage them to become teachers or to become anything else. We call them doctors and engineers since they were born. Because basically this is what we believe in, that if you are not a doctor or if you are not an engineer, you will not make money, so you will not survive. Again, it's about the mindset. So we need to evaluate the education system. This is number 1. Number 2, we need to see this continent 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. How is it going to look like? And then once we decide the direction of this continent, then what we really need to do is how can we capitalize on the African languages that we currently have? So then we can encourage those who are from the West to speak Swahili, and those from the East to speak Fulani in addition to the Swahili, and to speak Zulu, and to speak whatever language is available in the North. I don't see there is a problem identifying 4 or 5 African languages that will unite us together. And then we make them as part of the school curriculum since grade 1 or 2, because that is the time where we can learn better and faster. Third, political will. What is the political will that we currently have in our continent? In many cases, our heads of state and government, when they are addressing their own people, they will not speak to them in the language they understand, because they want to speak to them in a foreign language, in English, French, Portuguese, or whatever. And they are leaving, in fact, a huge chunk of the population, unfortunately, to use the word junk, simply because they want to appear in a formal setting, that they are educated and they are speaking a foreign language. And then our heads of state and government, when they come to the African Union, they try to basically compete against each other grammatically and linguistically, and each one of them will try to speak the language better than the other. Is this really the Africa we want? Is this really the Africa we deserve? Last but not least, our African youth. What future is waiting for them, really? And are they prepared for that future? And I'm asking these questions because I see so many African youth are waiting for the day that they can leave their countries and cross the Mediterranean to Europe. And unfortunately, in this journey, thousands of them drown in the Mediterranean, or die in the Sahara because of hunger and thirst. So the problem is, what future is waiting for our youth? And last but not least, and I think this is also one of the important things, is how can we tolerate each other as Africans until we reach a point where we can have one language, or until we reach a point where we can have at least one more than one language that will allow us to communicate together. I'm saying this because now, within the African Union, we have a serious problem. When we have a meeting of member states, if the documents are not translated to all the language I mentioned earlier, some member states will just leave the room because their document is not in the language they speak. Although they can speak English or French, but no. They're proud Portuguese, they're proud Spanish, they're proud this, they're proud that. So as a result, things are not moving forward simply because we are not tolerating each other. And that is why now we have a big crisis in Cameroon between English speaking and French speaking. And every day we hear a story coming out of Cameroon. So last but not least, I really hope out of this conversation, we will be able to make some recommendations on how we can really unite this continent and build the continent we want and the continent we deserve, using African languages, but also benefiting from the languages that exist in other parts of the world. Because without knowing the language that are in existence, we will not know what the enemy is planning for us. And this is really what I wanted to share at this moment. Thank you. I'm sorry for speaking long.
Wow, quite insightful. You've made a very good recommendation. Produce huge numbers of scholars. That's the first recommendation, and then we have to evaluate our long-term vision, more specifically on how to capitalize on language. And then he comes on to talk about the political will. I think that's a song well sung, and as far as politics and economics are concerned. And of course, he made an emphasis on capitalizing again on the African youth. That's the energy we are talking about. The question he posed is, are the youth prepared for the future? It's a serious question that needs to be looked at in institution settings. And of course, wheresoever people gather together, are we, the youth, ready for the future, or we are just there talking around and making noise and participating in politics in a way where we become youth leagues causing violence and all else? Are we sure ready for the future that we want? And of course, you've talked about tolerance again. How can we tolerate each other for the best, for the best of developing the continent? I would love to make a projection, Ambassador Salah Haman, to say, looking at this projection, KWANZAA focuses on African culture, focuses on arts, focuses on heritage. I would love to have you expand on the points you've made with this idea that how is it that institutions, knowing that you are coming from the African Union, what is it rather that institutions like African Union, what is it that other related institutions that really that develop the frameworks of development and all else, what is it that they are doing in ensuring that there is harmonization or cultural integration, and of course coordination of these things, culture, heritage, being it arts, in order to bring about a development? So we just want to understand the role of institutions in promoting these things you've put across.
Thank you so much, my brother, for giving me the floor once again. The African Union, as the continental organization, in fact, developed a number of instruments that address issues related to culture and languages within the African concept. And as a result of a number of these instruments, an institute on culture and languages, African languages, was developed and created, and it is currently based in Niamey, Niger. But unfortunately, the center is not well funded, the institute. And that is probably why the institute is not doing well and it is not well known. I'm not sure how many of us around the corner today have heard about the existence of this institute in Niamey that is supposed to be analyzing, evaluating, and promoting African cultures and African languages. And I have even learned that despite the volume of research that have been conducted, but not a single one was published officially, simply because the center doesn't have enough funding from our member states. And the reason is not being funded well, because some member states, they feel like they are minorities within the African Union family. So if the institute is fully funded, then the big languages like the French and English will have the superior place over a language like Swahili, Spanish, and others. And then maybe the Swahili will overcome the Fulani, maybe the Fulani will kill the Zulu language. And that is why, unfortunately, the institute is not doing very well. And maybe here the African civil society should also intervene and do something about supporting this center, so this center can do better in the near future. This is number one. Number two, there is another debate that is currently going on between the African Union and the regional economic communities on how to address issues related to culture and languages within the African concept. And this is again because of the lack of tolerance, because some of these regional mechanisms are dominated by a language over the other, and that is why they don't feel confident to be involved in this kind of conversations. But I think these conversations, to be very honest with you, should be at least civil society-led conversation. Why I'm emphasizing this point? Because when it comes to the African Union, there's so many restrictions, there's so many limitations, there's so many issues, so many challenges that would really keep the process from moving forward. When the civil society take the lead in this process, I think there will be, a stronger platform for taking the process forward. Lastly, despite the number of instruments we have, despite the number of mechanisms we have, unfortunately, the African Union is not able to popularize this instrument and these mechanisms. So not many African youth, not many African people even know that the African Union exists. And I'm sorry to say that, which is the reality. Leave alone to know that, for example, there is a treaty on the African culture. There is another treaty on the African languages. There's a treaty on African social development and social economic development and many other aspects. Who knows about all of these treaties? Who knows about all of these conventions that we have? Member states also are not really very supportive in that regard, because I think in many cases, member states, they feel, and I'm sorry to say that, if their citizens are quite informed and quite aware of the existence of all of these instruments and mechanisms, then might even cause some, some challenges at the national level. Awareness, unfortunately, in our African culture, no, sorry, let me put it this way. Awareness in our political African culture or political African systems is a negative thing. It's not a positive thing, because our heads of state and government, better for them to rule uneducated people, to rule people that are not well informed, to rule people that cannot speak even international languages, to rule people that they cannot read a newspaper because it's printed in English or French or Spanish or Portuguese. Better for them than to rule people that can really read and learn and speak up their minds. So I think because of also the political, challenges, we need to also maybe try to promote a stronger role for our academia, for our civil society, and for our media, if we really want to push, all of these proposals forward. Otherwise, if we want to rely on government support, if we want to rely on official support, this might not happen. This initiative is a great one that you guys are leading today, but also I want to ask how many are involved in the project? How many networks you were able to reach out to involve them in this conversation? And how many can you really get involved in the very near future? Because also the sooner you speed the process is better. Why? Because every year we are losing a generation, unfortunately. Every year it marks the end of the past 20 years, and from the past 20 years to this year we lose a generation. So I think it will be really good if we can move faster, but rely heavily on civil society, media, and academia, and to some extent also try to seek some political support from here and there. Thank you very much, Papa.
Quickly, Brother Toko, let me just add something there. And thank you so much, Baba Hamad, for that. I see we are heading to 2 hours, 30 minutes. I don't know how long you all want to be sitting in one spot, but I'm starting to get tired. I do love a good party, but I like it when I'm up and dancing and all that. So I was going to say, yes, I agree with you. The first thing is to change the African mindset, because to hear that brothers and sisters on the ground are killing each other because of the way they speak is just ridiculous. And we know where that comes from. The thing I'm going to address that we haven't mentioned is Western influence in Africa, which is in the AU, and it's in a lot of institutions and governments in Africa, actually, if not all of them, and which is what initiated this division, tribal division, right? This is what they brought into our culture, where they favored one tribe over the other and then created that hate. And so the tribes that were oppressed hated the one that was favored. And the one that was favored had to treat the one that was oppressed differently so that they could maintain a position of power. And we unfortunately carried on that culture beyond colonialism, and not because we were never given a chance to walk away from colonialism, right? Because it continues to this day. Their influence, their control continues to this day, because they never left Africa. So when I hear, and it's unfortunate, we just lost Ambassador. When I hear that the African Union has French, Portuguese, English, and Spanish as official languages, yes, that's my reaction. The reaction I'm getting right now, that's my reaction. It should be Hausa. It should be the main African languages. It should be Nkosa, right? It should be Yoruba. It should be those main united before it is French, Portuguese, English, and Spanish. Those are literally the languages of our colonizers. They literally are. I see Ambassador is back. So that would be a good starting place. Baba Hamad, I was saying that The African Union needs to start reflecting what they are projecting as the leaders currently of Africa, right? For them to have French, Portuguese, English, and Spanish as official languages in the African Union, when we know very well, like, this is, okay, here you have a liberated people, right? And then you tell them you have an organization that is going to lead your affairs, to connect you throughout the continent. And then you tell them, hold on, our official languages are going to be the languages of those people who oppressed you: Portuguese, French, English, and Spanish. So, African Union, this is my call to action to you. You must reflect on your languages that you're making official. I'm not saying let's not use those languages. I agree with you, Ambassador Hamad, that we need to learn them so that we can understand what is going on. The Chinese are very good about this. They have never abandoned Chinese, Mandarin, whichever dialects it comes in. But when they're doing business with the US, they will have their best speaking English Chinese people who will still speak, like, they'll be speaking English and then turn around and tell the other dude in Chinese what just happened and what needs to be done. They will use it strategically, right? They went to Kenya doing business with Kenyans, and they speak Kiswahili because they need to do business there. So they're very good at that. When they know they need a people, they will learn their language, but they will not abandon theirs. They will learn their language and use it for the need that it's needed for, right? Do we need to do business with them? Do we need to negotiate? So let's learn that language so that we can do that. Do we need to understand if they are conspiring against us? But when we communicate in our language, and we make sure that we are not losing it. So yes, I agree on all that. Thank you.
All right. It's a long conversation. We can't just finish in one sitting. So as we draw towards finalizing the conversation, I would love to have each of us make a contribution. 2 years ago, the African Union sits down and decides to give a theme for the year 2021. And they made an emphasis on arts, they made an emphasis on culture, they made an emphasis on heritage as a key to helping Africa achieve the African Agenda 2065. And they would, rather 2063, they would highlight aspirations in that framework to say, we aspire an African with strong cultural identity, among other things. We aspire an African where its emergence in the global stage, it's printed in its own culture, printed in its own arts, and printed in its own heritage. And they come to conclude to say, we are looking for that consciousness. Africans must be conscious. I would have loved if we would have learned an assessment from 2021 to date. How much have we done about it? But then my question would be to say, taking advantage of ceremonial events like the KWANZAA, what role should these ceremonial events play in helping us or facilitating the achievement of Agenda 2063? So we'll start with Prince and we'll go to Aliu, Dr. Lashanta, you speak, Mduku, Sanduku will make a comment again, and then we'll finish with Ambassador Salah Haman. Let's take it in that order.
Okay, let me start from the very basics, if you ask me. Umoja. Umoja means unity. And I know of a surety that the basics for the Agenda 2063 and the implementation is to get a very united continent of Africa that can be prosperous, a united and prosperous continent of Africa. And that's basically what we are working towards. So Umoja is a very basic principle that is celebrated during KWANZAA, right? And it's one of the key core principles of KWANZAA. So where Africans come together, if we can build that unity amongst ourselves, then that 2063 vision will become a reality. You know, when Dr. Salah Hamad was speaking, he spoke about something very important and said how that the young generation continue to put up some Western behavior, but then speak the traditional language. that's like a contradiction. So they are doing this, but then doing this, the reverse. I mean, and so that unity that we want as a people, if we can have that unity spread across, where young people across the continent understand the need to come together and push this kind of agenda, then I know that many young people would correct their abnormalities and then do things that are supposed to be done rightly, so that we can get the Africa we want. But I know that the Agenda 2063 is a vision to help us see and realize an effective, united, and prosperous continent by the end of the year 2063. If we continue with the principles of KWANZAA, I'm sure we can get that done, and even faster, very, very faster. Because when we get this done, then all these other principles will come in play, and then we will get to see. So two things for me will be Umoja, the first, and then the last, Imani. Because again, we have to have faith in ourselves as a people to be able to get and build that Africa we want. There's a letter that I always read, and I always try to use to inspire myself to continue to work and pursue this African development. It is the letter from the email from the future, written by the former AU chairperson. I'm sure Ambassador Salah understands the letter properly, and that's the letter from the future by Dr. Dlamini Zuma. The letter written, addressed to Kwame Nkrumah, that was supposed to be written in 2063, and it talks about how Africa eventually became what it should be. But one basic ingredient in that letter was that the African people eventually realized this because they believed in themselves. And because they understood, they came together unitedly, worked with that commitment and that courage, that they believed in themselves, and then they achieved what they dreamt or what they imagined to achieve. And so, and that for me is a very key thing, the synergy between KWANZAA and the Africa we want. Thank you so much, my brother.
Light report. Ariu, what's your comment on the same? Unmute yourself, please. Unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me now?
Very good.
Yes, regarding the Africa Agenda 2063 and the celebration of KWANZAA, which is an African heritage, I think what we are saying here today is paramount, and what we are saying here is not something new. What we are saying here, some better minds have already said it in 1950s and 1960s. So what we should do, I think, is to pray we should continue on this path, because as Africa Agenda 2063, I think all the informations of Africa Agenda 2063 is a rehash of what Kwame Nkrumah spoke about in 1963 and other leaders spoke about. So I think the regional bodies, as Ambassador said, the regional bodies in the continent of Africa must do something. When I said the regional bodies, I'm talking about the ECOWAS, I'm talking about the East African Community, I'm talking about the SADC, Southern African Development Committee, and the Maghreb as well. This work is not only for the African Union. I think the regional bodies have something to do. And recently we have seen attempts by ECOWAS to introduce eco-currency in the West African countries, and it has been hindered through the subservient activities by France, and they hindered that in coming into fruition. I think Africa Agenda 2063 will be realized through the work that we are doing today. And lastly, Africa Agenda 2063 doesn't mean that we are going to realize it in 2063. We should break it into year 1, year 2, year 3 plan. We should start by saying that we are going to achieve this in 2 years to come, and later we are going to have common currency in 2024. We are going to have common currency in 2025. In 2027 we are going to have common defense in the continent of Africa. We should not wait saying that it's all until and unless 2060 we are going to achieve the entire agenda. No, but we should rather break it year 1, year 2, year 3. My suggestion. Thank you very much.
Well highlighted. Thank you so very much for such an insight. Dr. Ashanta Williams, what's your input on the question posed?
I will start with the individual. We have to improve ourselves in order to improve our community. We have to educate ourselves in order to be able to educate our community. So, in order for us to bring life to these 7 principles, we have to start with educating ourselves. And I just think about taking this journey to deliver it to my family. I cannot deliver to them if I haven't educated myself on the principles. And once that is done, then we can work together, because I won't be the know all be all. Their knowledge will come together with mine, and then we will then begin to strengthen that, right? So we have to educate ourselves. We have to be intentional about our individual growth in order to bring the entire masses together. We have to be strong within us. And I think about that saying, they say like the mother always gives to the family and gives and never thinks about herself. She wants to make sure that her family is okay. But if I'm not okay, my family won't be okay. I cannot give to them if I am not well, if I am not edified in my education and in the things that I need to know so that I can deliver that to my family. So see that as Africa being the whole family, the community, us as individuals have to be okay to be able to give and be able to give to our community and bring our community together. And then just to throw a little bit in there about the language, bilingualism is a powerful thing. It connects us all. Yes, I am a native English speaker, but once I started taking the Swahili classes, a whole world has opened up to me, right? Um, it brightens my day when I'm able to go into the school system and speak with a student who has just come here to us from Africa and doesn't know the English language. And then I can practice using my little bit of Swahili that I have, and to see their face light up. They feel some comfort and connection there. So being bilingual, trilingual, it's important, but we also need to make sure that we recognize that our languages are important. They are important, and so we cannot put them as second fiddle, right? We can't put them to the side. Our language, our native language, is important, and those that are at the top need to be the lead of that. You need to show that the languages are important to the people, because the tail follows the head. So I'll leave it at that.
Wow. Thank you. What an analogy. What an analogy. Thank you very much for putting that across. Sister Nduku, what's your comment on the same?
I am so grateful to all of you. I want to say thank you all. I want to say thank you, Brother Prince Ifo, for coming up with this idea to have this on this platform in this way. Thank you to all the organizations that said yes. Thank you to everyone who's joining us. And thank you to everyone who's going to watch this and share it with every single African that you know. And for that African to share it with every single African that they know. And thank you, Baba Hamad, for joining us. Because we are known to be the Africans who will hold you accountable. And thank you for speaking truth despite the complex structure of the African Union currently, right? Thank you for standing by truth, because we need it as Africans in order to liberate ourselves and for a better future for us. So the one thing I would like to see immediately, first of all, you've all heard me in our various shows talk about the we in the Agenda 2063. We have to be careful that we is identified as African, because for as long as we have Westerns meddling, when I see, what picture did I see? I saw something about some trade something, and there were African leaders. I remember the Rwandan one was there just recently. They were cutting a ribbon, and amongst them, was the EU representative, a white woman. And I said, what business does she have cutting that ribbon? So we must stop inviting those who do not mean us well to build with us. We must stop inviting them to be a part of Agenda 2063. We choose kujichagulia, which is the second principle, how we interact with them as far as 2063. They don't tell us how we do 2063. And my fear is that 2063 has been founded on Western influence, right? They wrote an idea, they gave it to us, and now they're making it African. But we need to flip the script on them and make it African and tell them what time it is. So I would like to see that as soon as possible, as soon as tomorrow. I know reality is realistically, it won't be tomorrow. But I would like today, if all the ancestors would rise, let me call on to the most important ones: Harriet Tubman, Mekati Lili, Dedan Kimathi, and you know why I'm calling on them, Malcolm X. I'm taking Che Guevara today to be ours. He has that African spirit. If they could all rise and bring some African consciousness to the members of the AU, full African consciousness, which means you're not worried about what the West will think and what the consequences from the West will be, but you're worried about the well-being of Africa and Africans. If they could bring it to them as soon as possible, I would like to see that. The other thing I'm saying, if this celebration, Kwanzaa, right? All of Africa is going away celebrating Christmas, a foreign celebration to them. Kwanzaa, we just established that Kwanzaa is founded on principles that are very African, that all of us have been practicing. So if next year, 2024, the AU can put together a frame and put it in their headquarters, a large frame with the 7 principles: umoja, kujichagulia, ujima, ujamaa, nia, kuumba, and imani, right at the center, so that when you are all meeting and arguing, if there's that, oh goodness, Negropean, if there's the neo-colonialist, if there's a puppet of the West, they can see the principles and remember, and you can all hold each other accountable when someone is out of line. Brother, look what our principles are. You're not behaving in the spirit of umoja. You're not behaving in the spirit. We're not serving African people because we're not grounded in Nia. What is our purpose? So it would be nice to see the AU embrace that and put it on their wall. And next year, come time to celebrate Kwanzaa on December 26th, it would be good to see an official AU celebration of Kwanzaa and observing it. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much for such a highlight. Ambassador, what's your commentary on the same?
Thank you so much, my brother, for giving me the floor again. And I want to say the following. You know, if we go back in history, if we really read the history that is written by African pens, if any, the reality is Africa is the birth of mankind, the birthplace of mankind. Life originated here in Africa. The human civilization began here in Africa. All these concepts of democracy, human rights, good governance originated here in Africa. You know, if you look at the kingdoms that used to rule in Africa, they were founded on the true concept of democracy and human rights. An African cannot just kill an African at that time and then, just go unaccounted for or go unpunished. The elders will meet under the tree. The elders will discuss the case, and the elders will solve the matter. And then the system was working, and the Africans were happy until the foreign, stakeholders came into Africa to enslave Africans and to take them away. And unfortunately, it was done with the support of African leaders, African tribal leaders. Why? Because those who came from outside were good in dividing us, using financial means and other means as attractions. And then if you come in the recent history, we lost a leader in Burkina Faso simply because of foreign intervention. He was killed by his own good friend, simply because that person, without mentioning the name, he was extremely Pan-Africanist, nationalist, and he believed that Africans can build their own continent as Africans. The similar goes for the Prime Minister of Zaire, then DRC, who was melted in chemicals, so at least nothing will be left of him. Brutal killing by external entities. Nkrumah, what happened to him at the end of his political life? He was removed, also with the support of political, from, anyhow, to make the story short, number one, what we really need to do to celebrate Kwanzaa and our African heritage and our African history, as I mentioned before, and I would like to mention again, we need to begin by rewriting our own history, number one. Number two, we need to work on changing the mindset of the youth, so then they will have at least hopes that the future will be better for them living in this beautiful continent. Number three, we should not allow those who are coming from outside to divide us anymore. And that is why if we rewrite our history and then teach that history in school, at least the next generation will know that allowing foreign entities to come in will certainly divide us and will not be a reason for us to be united. Also, that doesn't mean we should not benefit from what is goods that are coming from elsewhere, but it should be coming in as we want it to come in, so then we can benefit from it and build our communities and societies, and also try to improve our own conditions for a better life. But if we say that we as Africans cannot do it because we are not trained, we are not educated, we are not this, we are not that, then there's a problem. Then there's a problem. And our biggest problem today, really, and I will say this despite the fact that I work for the African Union, is the mindset of our own leaders. In many cases, they don't even trust their own people. They are guarded by Israelis and Americans and French because simply they cannot trust their people. So if you don't trust your people, how can you rule them? How can you build the communities and the societies? How can you build your country? And that is why, if you compare this experience of Ghana and Singapore, who gained independence the same year, where is Singapore today and where is Ghana today? Sudan gained independence 2 years before Ghana. Where is Sudan today? My dear colleagues and friends, there is no one can come from Venus or Mars to build this continent for us. This continent belongs to us as Africans. And the only way for us to build this continent is, number one, to believe in ourselves, to believe in our capacities, in our knowledge, in our skills, in our history, in our future. And number two, after we do believe in all of the above, we also need to tolerate each other and respect each other and live together in harmony. Because if not, then this continent will move from conflict to another. And by the way, they are keeping us busy with all of these conflicts. But why? Because they know for sure that the future is here. Africa is the future. Why? Leave alone the natural resources we have. Leave alone the fertile land we have. Leave alone the water we have, the environment we have. Africa is the youngest continent. Out of 1.2 billion Africans, 65 of them are below the age of 30 or 35. That is a great asset for Africa. So because of our youth, we need to be committed and dedicated to the cause of implementing Agenda 2063 as it is, so we can build the Africa we want, and I always add, the Africa we deserve. And if we don't do so, then there is no one can come from anywhere else to do it for us. That is why we need to capitalize on the achievements made so far and try to address the gaps and the challenges and the problems that we're facing on a daily basis, so we can really move forward. And to do so, we need to engage our youth. I repeat, we need to engage fully our youth, and we need to empower our women. We cannot keep our woman in the kitchen simply because she is an African woman. The African woman can lead just like any other woman, and in fact, in many cases, better than any other woman. But again, we need to change the African mindset. So I really invite you as civil society to officially make a proposal that as we come to the summit of 2024, that the principles of KWANZAA will be in a billboard within the African Union premises. And as head of the AFSA Secretariat, I will fully support this initiative and I will make it happen. But I need you to lead the initiative so then I can make it official within the African Union. I'm grateful to Prince for inviting me to be part of this conversation. I have known you as an African leader for a very long time, and I know you as an African youth for a very long time. And for me, anytime I receive your invitation, I can't say no, because I know that the conversation will be great as it is now. But I think we should not end the conversation today. I think we should continue the conversation within our networks, within our families, within our schools, within our universities. Let's take it elsewhere. Continuing the conversation will make it will make it part of our cultures, our traditions, and that way we will try to root the principles that we are now advocating for and the principles that we are preaching on. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm very grateful to all of you around the table. I have learned a lot from the conversation. And let's stay blessed, and all the best of wishes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Salahman. Thank you very much, Prince Ifor. Thank you very much, Aleyo Suleiman. Honor to you, Dr. Lashanta Williams, and of course, Sister Nduku. It has been a great pleasure. Of course, the event has been made possible by the support from the Young African Leaders Forum, the Water Lodney Foundation, the Kumbukeni Urban Shamans Production, and of course, the Jamuia Yanguzo Saba. It has been a coordination of these agencies coming together, helping to facilitate the same. So as indicated by Ambassador Sarah Haman, we are going to push the conversation, find even more platforms to convey what has been discussed here, to the end that we facilitate development as it's supposed to, and more so to celebrate African arts, African culture, and African heritage, as is the spirit of KWANZAA, as is the spirit of Ubuntu, and of course, raising far above the spirit of Pan-Africanism. So thank you very much. It's a great honor having you around. We close at this juncture. Thank you.
Hold on real quick, brother. You all talk real quick. Let me grab a video from the Urban Shamans YouTube, and we can close with that one. Hold on, please. Continue.
All right. Thank you. It's quite okay. All right, fine. So we are going out singing drums again as we entered. So the honor remains as we celebrate the African drum.
I guess I'll put out a question instead of you all being quiet as I find a video. What did you like best about this time? People in the chat, our fellow community members, our fellow Africans, if you can share what you liked best, and Ndugu Toko can share with us. Just share your thoughts about the gathering. Ndugu Toko, if you can, I guess, include the community in the conversation, and I'll find a video real quick.
All right, so she's highlighted what is it that you've liked based of today's conversation. So you can put across your thoughts in the comment section, and so I'll go through some of the comments that have been made that we didn't get to come across. So Mukutangara says, "Loved it all. I've loved it." Akanta makes a statement. Awesome drumming. There was, I think that's a good issue there. I think for me as well, the drums were just on point. That was a touch, an African touch. We need to keep reverberating. Uh, Santo Adam poet made a statement to say we need mental emancipation to unite. If not, love ourselves as one, we can make a difference.
All right, and our brother's internet was interrupted just in time. I found a closing video. Thank you all. Like Brother Toko said, have a wonderful end of year. And please remember, we start celebrating Kwanzaa on the 26th. And Tabibu Lashanta was great in showing those of us who have not started how we can transition, how we can meet our families and our friends where they are and introduce Kwanzaa. It can be a gift about Kwanzaa, right? Just give a gift this year. But like she said, it can be a game that you play during your Christmas celebration this year. So let me go ahead and play Kwaherini, Siku Njema, Asanteni Sana.
Continue to spread the love of the Most High. It is an honor for the earthly sovereign's land to be right here praying for you. People, are you ready?